What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of bromance, but it's not just us, Shawn.
It's that special time of year. It's around Halloween. We got to get our Brolloween on. And I think the last 2 years we've had a very special guest. This year we have our very special guest, plus one. So now it's a foursome, Richard.
Well, now they're both special guests, so now they're going to have to fight over which one's which.
That's right.
Who's the plus one?
We have from the Ectoplasm Show, Jason, who's been here multiple times, and Josh. Welcome, gentlemen. Excited to have you on for Brolloween 2020.
Absolutely.
I'd say that Josh is my plus one because I've already been on the show.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's kind of like that D&D group, like you bring your friend, you're like, all right, so this is kind of cool, right?
Well, and I pushed you guys off for a couple weeks due to certain things, and I part of the reason I pushed off to tonight was because so I could bring Josh on. So
yes,
he's definitely the plus one.
I am the plus one. That's how it works.
I love it. So we like to do on Brolloween. We usually just like to talk about creepy things. And I was going to start with this story, but I think it's going to be more interesting because one of us, at least knowingly, is recording from an actual haunted place. And you said it was Malvern Manor? Malvern Manor. So, Josh, you've got the cool story to start us out with. So I want to know about this manor of yours.
Yeah, Malvern Manor is one of those places. It was built in the mid 1800s. Ran as a hotel all the way up until the 1950s, so it had a pretty good run there. Becomes a, for lack of a better term, I guess it was more of like an old folks home, a rest home, right? And then in the 70s, it became a group home for mentally handicapped people. As far as death on property, we're up to 187.
Is that since you've had it, or
yeah, just in the past few weeks?
For the record, none are his responsibility.
That's right. No, everybody signs a waiver before they start their overnight investigation and all that stuff here. But yeah. This is also then obviously where I have my recording studio and so if I'm filming interviews or anything like that, it's over there in that section of the room. If I'm recording podcasts, it's over here in this section of the room. So, yeah, it's kind of fun.
How does one fall into a manor?
This was so stupid. So I was I was filming my first documentary film, and we were actually just across the street at this place called the Classic Cafe, and they have their own slew of paranormal happenings, right? And they were nice enough to say, yeah, come on over and film or whatever. And there's a bar that's attached to this place, right? So with noise contamination and all of that shit, this was a Friday night, and apparently it had been a pretty rough week for a lot of people because they're quite loud. But so I was like, we can't investigate, we can't do anything. So I go outside and I'm smoking my angry cigarette and I'm pissed off at the world. And I'm like, night one of filming is screwed. And then there's this guy outside and he was like, hey dude, what's with all the cameras? And I'm like, yeah, this is where I'm going to lose a lot of people. Right. So I'm like, okay, he's either going to think this is really cool or he's going to think I'm caca duty shit crazy. But, anyway, he was like, oh yeah, that's pretty interesting. He's like, that stuff kind of fascinates me. He goes, I don't really believe in it. He goes, however, I got this place. And he goes, and there's some weird things that happen that I can't necessarily explain, blah, blah, blah. And he told me the brief history of the place. I was like, where the fuck is this place? And he's like, oh, it's just right across the street. And I was like, all right, pretty sure we just became best friends, that's awesome. And he was nice enough to let us in, and I fell in love with the place and ended up buying it, so.
You know what that is, Shawn? That's a story of a cigarette bringing things together.
Let me tell you let me just tell you guys, how many times I have been smoking and really cool shit happens, okay? How many celebrities? I can count at least a dozen celebrities that I have met just smoking a cigarette. Adam Levine is one of them. Outside smoking a cigarette at a fucking airport.
Does he do that with his shirt off?
No.
He does everything with his shirt off.
I assume so. He walks outside, takes it off. He
puts the cigarette in his belly button. That's how it happens. He just puts it in his belly button and just absorbs it osmosis-like. It's like a protozoa.
Just ridiculous stuff. But yeah.
How long have you owned the place?
I think like right at 6 years now, I believe.
Okay. So I'm really fascinated by this because so you buy this place. And I'm guessing it's a hotel, so it's got to be really big, right? Or is it kind of?
It's 10,000 square feet. So I mean, it's fairly big. It's fairly big.
It was originally a hotel.
Correct.
Then it was turned into a hospital and expanded.
It did, yeah. So they did keep adding on to it as the years kind of progressed. So we have what we call like the nursing home wing, right? And the nursing home wing is a very long, dark, ominous hallway. But the rooms themselves, like there's wider door frames. A lot of the rooms have a laminate type flooring. It certainly suggests a more medical atmosphere for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly different than the rest of the place. But that was the last addition to the building itself, and that was in 1956. So I mean, it has been quite some time yet still. So
it's some things that you've seen in this place. Not just, I guess the other question is like, do you stay the night there a lot?
I stay the night here. I mean, I've stayed many nights here. But yeah, I mean, some of the claims of activity, I guess. I mean, the Shadow Man for sure is probably one of the most terrifying things that you're going to, that you're probably going to experience here. That's what's sending the majority of people out the door. Okay. But physical manipulation of objects, physical manipulation of you. Disembodied voices, obviously the shadows and the weird footsteps and running and singing and screaming and all the weird shit that, I mean, I was even hearing it when we were just recording the show, and I was commenting on it and I'm like, God damn it. Because it sucks because I know I'm the only person here right now, and it's somewhat, I don't know, unsettling sometimes when you're here by yourself and you're just like, son of a bitch.
So, I mean, being there 6 years and you've been recording there have you been recording there the 6 years as well? Like, or is it more recent?
No, I mean, the studio itself is probably more recent, probably within the last year or so for the studio itself, when I finally just got sick and tired of, my slow ass internet connection at my house and the, wrestling around with the kids and, fighting for bandwidth and all that shit. So yeah, it's like, I'm just going over here.
So now you just have to put up with the screams and the Shadow Man and all the creepy stuff going on.
There's give and take there.
I have to guess, like, is this something that let's say you go there 7 nights in a week. How often are you seeing stuff? Is it every night? Maybe once a month?
No, I mean, it's pretty consistent, even throughout the day, honestly. So even like when I'm here just doing like day tours and things of that nature, there's all sorts of weird crap that happens. I mean, some day tours only make it in like 15 minutes, It's like they're gone. The tour's done for them.
See, now Sean's worried because he was like, well, I didn't think bad things can't happen during the day, right?
I know, right?
I saw his eyes just go wide.
Well, it's interesting, like, how much stuff actually does happen during the day. And now I will say, I don't know if it's like the creep factor or what, but yeah, like at night, obviously, the lights go out in this place and it's a completely different ball game. So you have the bullshit that happens during the day and then the bullshit that happens at night. And it's almost, I don't know. Sometimes it's just too much, honestly. Like I do a lot of smoke breaks.
Like scarier to me, like at night, like you could almost talk yourself out of like, oh, it's dark. I made it up in my mind. Seeing stuff through the day would be more freaky because it's like, well, like there shouldn't be a shadow there and there's a shadow there. And is that the kind of stuff that you're saying you're seeing during the day?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been here, like usually when I show up, it's about 10:30 in the morning, right? And I've walked in like through the kitchen area and I've gotten to like the threshold of where it would get into like the sitting room area that we have set up. And I've heard my name called and it's just like this weird sing-songy voice, like Josh. I'm like, okay. And first smoke break of the day. All right, here we go. I'm like, it's weird. It's unsettling. It's like the last thing that you're really expecting to have happen when you're just walking in, getting ready for the day. So it's weird.
Does it end up getting to feel like, do you get used to it at all? Or do you feel like there's any kind of, like, I feel like, it ends up being like you come, like, I don't know, like almost like a party or something, or like they're like excited to see you kind of thing? Or is it more that of an almost like an annoyance? Like instead of a sing song, you're like, Josh, it's like, oh, Josh is here.
Like I haven't experienced that yet, thank God. But no, it's interesting. Like if anything, I've gotten jumpier. Like it's like this weird occupational hazard, right? So it's like the littlest thing now will just like make me jump and be like, holy shit, like what was that? There's a lot of that. So I'll probably die of a heart attack by the time I hit 40, honestly.
I've been up there a few dozen times.
Yeah.
Now, probably more than that. I have no idea how many times. The first time that I didn't have anything happen was the last time when I was there a couple weeks ago.
That's true.
I can't think of anything that happened while I was there that I noticed. And I walked around the place. But we were more focused on other stuff. But even that usually doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was during the day. That was the very first time. And that doesn't usually, happen with places.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to a place 100 times and, half and half or less could have activity.
I think there's just like so much that's going on in this place. Like, I don't know. I think there's things that are going on in this place that we just don't even know about, and it's just bizarre. And I think that adds to like why it's so active is because there's just so much bullshit going on here.
What do you mean by that? Just like people coming in and out and like,
No,
like you doing a show there and filming stuff?
No, I think it's more of like the, like just how many like different spirits are around, like it's just a little ridiculous. Like we have, spirits, that are referencing themselves and they're from back in like, the turn of the century, basically. We have other spirits that are basically claiming that they were here in the 90s, all of this. And the fun stuff is when you can correlate historical fact with what these spirits are suggesting and saying. That's the fun stuff.
Like if one starts doing the Macarena and then you're like, oh my God, that was in the 90s.
It's so funny to me. I saw some meme the other day and it's like all these ghosts be like, God, what was it? Like all these ghosts are like showing up in period dress and all of these, antique type things. And it's like, why don't we ever get a ghost from the mid 90s? It's like, it's Britney, bitch.
That's a good point.
It's not as spooky.
Yeah. You never see a ghost with a fanny pack. That never happens.
If you see some fucking ghost, you get like all these EVPs like singing Bop or something,
Well, in a place like Josh's, Josh doesn't stay with the team that comes in. They have it all night.
Yeah.
So he's so busy that if I wanted to book a weekend, I had to book New Year's Eve because and I would have had to done that this summer because he's that booked up. So they have that many teams going in there. Who knows what they're doing in there?
Exactly. Like
they could be opening whatever or bringing stuff in.
Or like opening 5 Dybbuk boxes and leaving them behind.
We were going to do that anyways, but they did it before us.
But they
Can you explain what that is?
A Dybbuk box. A Dybbuk is just like the Jewish term for demon. And basically what it's saying is like it's a box that's said to contain a demon. Now, usually then it is sealed. Usually there's like mirrors on the bottom, the top, the sides, all of that.
Well, this is what happened with that. We talked about on the show for like 3 weeks we were going to buy one of these boxes and open it for the show. We were going to do it at the Manor and film it. And we were looking at it. You could buy them on eBay. And they're not Dybbuk boxes because they just claim to have a spirit trapped in them. Right. They're sealed up with wax and have all this stuff on them. And I'm sure 100% of them on eBay are fake, but whatever. Probably. We were going to do it for fun. And Josh calls me one morning on a Saturday or Friday. We were planning on going up there. He calls me it was a Saturday. He called me in the morning and said, guess what's here?
You think you're never going to believe this?
He walked in the Manor and went to go grab the key off the counter, and there were 5 of those boxes,
5 Dybbuk
sitting
boxes
there.
sitting on the counter in the kitchen.
And like, it's a sign. Like,
Yeah.
they just showed up.
It's like, we have to do this now, right?
And
Like-
it was the team before them that left them there, along with
Yeah.
the teddy bear.
yeah.
And he emailed the team, and he said, "Yeah, they're yours."
I'm like, hey, yeah, did you fucking forget something? Wise ass. You know what I
One
mean?
of them was open already, so I
Yeah.
planned the next weekend on going up there, and we were going to sit down and open all 4 unopened ones. Well, we get up there, and Josh hadn't actually looked close enough. They were already all open. So that team went in there without telling Josh and opened those 5 boxes and released whatever in.
See, that's the thing. It's like, it's basically, so you invite a team up there, and every time a team goes up there, it's like the start of a horror movie. It's like, oh, let's do this thing. I wonder what'll happen.
Yeah, you started out with just
Sorry. They
Go
said
ahead.
that the teddy bear moved, and my imagination was they opened one of the boxes and the teddy bear did a little dance, and they got so freaked out that they left Josh presents.
Oh, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, man, it was weird though. It was weird. There was like this little bottle of like salt in the bathroom. I'm like, what the fuck is this about? Like, there was all sorts of little things like that. So I don't know, like, what the hell's going on. See, even right now, guys, right now, from the lobby area, like, Jason, I know you know the setup of this place. Like, so where I'm sitting, the lobby is maybe, 20, 30 feet away?
Yeah.
And I hear this, hello, from there. And that's an echoey ass fucking room. So I know, like,
you're like, hot mic.
Guys, I'm busy. Guys, come on. I'm
So we actually took
fuck.
like one of those 2 of those boxes remained at the manor, and I took 3 of them home with me. One we went with Larry, who was with us, and then we gave one to one of our listeners. So one of our listeners has one of those boxes in their house now.
Yeah, thank God.
Oh, Richard, did you get that gift that Jason sent you?
I did.
All right.
It was
Open it up.
beautiful.
There was candle wax all over it, though.
Yeah. So I burned that off quick.
So, like you talked about, like they left like that little bottle of salt. Is that something you see with? I don't know quite the right term. Like more or less professional people coming in and trying stuff. Like somebody like that, did they kind of know what they were doing, or do you think they just were doing it for kind of a laugh? Or
I don't know. Like, I think they were doing it to elicit a response of some sort, right? That's what I think they were trying to do. There have been times that I've walked in here and the place has been like such a mess. Like one time in particular, I remember there was salt everywhere. And it was like these big circles of salt, right? And it was like all up and down the nursing home wing, in the kitchen, in the bathroom, like all of these big circles of salt. And I'm like, okay, somebody has watched one too many episodes of Supernatural, right? Like,
Did you still have their
That
credit
was
card
my
information?
Exact first thought.
that's what I
Like
thought.
they
too.
watched Hocus Pocus.
Yes.
And
God damn it. And so that took forever with a vacuum. You know what I mean? And that's one thing, though, that sucks, right? Is like being here for as long as I have been now, you know, kind of like what's going to piss them off in some way.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
almost like this weird family that I have here. But I also know that running a vacuum cleaner, they don't like it. They do not like it when you're running the vacuum cleaner. And I'm like, fuck, now I have to run it a lot. You know what I mean? Like usually you put in your headphones, you keep your head down, you do it real quick, and then that's that. It's like this was an actual process of like really deep
just announce
cleaning.
beforehand.
That's what I
Guys,
do.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Right. It'll only take me a few minutes. I'm so sorry. Just a few minutes and I'm out of
Would
your
you
hair.
rather have the salt everywhere?
Right.
they're like, it doesn't even work.
Yeah. Right. They're like, it's bullshit anyway.
We watched Supernatural. We were alive in the 90s.
They totally weren't a Dean and Sam.
It's so great though.
So, like you talked about, you just said like you kind of have like this weird family kind of relationship. Do you get? I know, and there's like a couple things I guess I have to really ask on that, but like, do you know? What's the best way to kind of say like? Do you
Well,
know
I
when
would
you
say
kinda
it's
have-
more like a caretaker relationship. It's like
Oh, yeah.
he's the Nurse Ratchet of the spirit home.
Basically. That's what I feel like sometimes. Yeah. Except I'm not a douche, you know, like I'm just kind of fucking.
Unless they piss him off and then he just turns the vacuum on and goes home for the night.
Like, later, bitches. Enjoy yourself. Yeah. But no, it is weird. Like I find myself like walking in, saying good morning, you know, things like that. Saying good night, see you tomorrow when I'm leaving. Walking up and down the halls and just kind of talking to the walls, it would seem like, you know, like it's very, very much like The Shining, I guess. It's fucked up.
And do you feel like you get a response from that? Like, you know, it seems like that seems almost romantic to me.
Yeah, it's kind of weird though, right? Because like they're listening, that's for sure. Like for an example, if I know the group that's coming in, right? If they've been here numerous times or whatever, I'm just like, hey, light them up tonight. You know what I mean? I like fucking light them up. And like usually it works. Usually that helps. Cause they're like, oh Jesus, it was the craziest night ever. I'm like, really? Like I couldn't have guessed.
Did you use salt? Lots of salt?
I feel like you should play into it and act like maybe you're one of the ghosts. See, like just like you were just talking about The Shining, get a picture of like you with like a bunch of old people and just hang it on one of the hallways. And then all of a sudden they're walking down the hallway. They're like, isn't that the guy that let us in?
Newspaper clipping from the 50s or something like that, which I have a lot of those articles, like just everywhere. That's so weird. I should totally do that.
You're welcome.
It's weird though that you bring that shit up, right? So like there's this really cool place outside of Des Moines, Iowa. It's called Farrar, the Farrar Schoolhouse. And one of their claims of activity is up on the third floor. There's a very tall, dark, like shadow figure type thing. And the guy who actually like basically does what I do, his name is Will. Will is a tall drink of water. And we were talking about like, well, like who the fuck do you think that shadow man is? Like, who is it? He's like, what if it's me? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, think about it. He goes, the way we perceive time is so linear anyway, right?
Exactly.
He's like, what if it's me 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, what have you? He's like, what if it's me? Now, here's where it gets super weird then too, right? So I started kind of thinking about that. And one of the claims of activity around here is they'll hear like keys jingling, right? All the freaking time I have my keys on my belt, right? Yeah. And it's like I've got two different key rings, one for home and one for here. And they're always like clink, clink, clink all over the place. And it makes me wonder. I'm like, fuck, is that me? You know, it's like
it's kind of like a Haunting a Hill House kind of thing where the ghost was the actual, spoiler alert, but the ghost was actually the girl.
I tell you, it's really strange. So I have a buddy who was he was at a prison. And it was just him and another buddy of his, right? But he sat down and he was doing a geoport session, which is basically like having a real-time conversation with a ghost, right? So he's sitting there in solitary confinement in this old prison. And he's asking like certain questions. And this guy, you start to hear this response go, like this guy goes, what the hell is going on? And then you hear the same voice say, I think I'm losing my mind. And then my buddy was like, no, I don't think you're losing your mind. It's just me. I'm trying to talk to you. And this guy's like, yeah, I'm hearing voices. I'm losing my mind. And then he's like, no, you're not losing your mind. He's like, I'm asking you a question. He's like, I must be in another time period or something like that, but you and I are able to communicate somehow. You are not going crazy, I promise. It's like, what the hell is going on here? And this guy's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, he's like, can I get you anything? And this guy answers like, yeah, like a glass of water would be great. He's like, well, ask the guard. He goes, it won't work. Well, how do you know it won't work? He goes, the guard's asleep. Like this was one of the most intelligent exchanges that I've ever seen on video before.
It's like the lake house.
It's ridiculous, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it's like, is that what a ghost is? You know, like, is that what a ghost is? It's just like pieces in time or whatever that are overlapping in some way, shape, or form.
In time, parallel dimensions.
Bingo, which they already said, like what? We already know of what? How many? 11 or 13 or some shit that?
I think we're like 11.
It's so crazy.
11 or 14, somewhere around there.
11 or 14 what?
Different dimensions that are simultaneously going on at this exact moment.
All right, I'm only aware of the Marvel ones. What is this? What's these 11 and 14 dimensions?
So not to get weird on you, Shawn, but in theoretical physics, they talk about this thing called M theory. Basically, that our dimension, our reality, as you and I know it, is stacked up against a bunch of other ones, and it's all separated by very thin membranes that vibrate at different frequencies. So theoretically, if you can change your own personal frequency, you could essentially cross over or communicate with someone in a completely parallel universe.
So the thing you talk about where it's ghost, it could actually just be you in a different...
Or it could be somebody else. It could be somebody else in a completely different dimension. And since time is fluid, that dimension's, 200 years back or 50 years back or 20 years back.
Or technology is like they're essentially in the 1800s now, but or they could be 200 years in the future.
Like
I actually was going to talk about this story on ectoplasm, and I forgot. And
Bastard.
You guys just reminded me of it. From Science. So this article was from October 10th, and the headline is, researchers at Large Hadron Collider are confident to make contact with parallel universe in days.
I saw that story. So CERN, Shawn, you know CERN? They live in Switzerland.
That's the big. I know they're the ones that made the collider.
They're the ones that made the collider that runs like across different countries because it's so huge. So so the point of the Large Hadron Collider is it smashes particles against each other, and what they're hoping to do is using very, very sophisticated cameras, they're trying to hopefully capture a moment where subatomic particles smash against each other, and we can see on a very small scale the recreation of the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm. And that's been going on for like 15 years.
It's been going on for a while. So the downsides of this is someone once theorized like that they could potentially open a black hole and swallow the entire solar system whole.
Welcome to 2020, bitches.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember like when they were about like the day away from doing it, like something happened and it broke. And people said like, oh my God, I bet it was a time travel that came back and stopped it.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, the other thing I find funny is like they talk about 2020 and obviously how crazy it's been. And the thing I find hilarious is there's a theory out there, which is it's probably just a Facebook kind of theory, but they say like, what if 2020 keeps getting worse because a time traveler is coming to stop something, but inadvertently is making it worse? Like
too many butterflies. Too many
like
butterflies.
You don't hear anything about them anymore, but at what cost?
Dude, like Kupzyk brought this shit up earlier too. We were talking about that, and he said like all these time travelers that are on TikTok, they keep saying like 2021 is going to be far worse. Like what did they say, Kupzyk? Like the 2nd of January, something big was going to happen?
Something that will change the world. Who knows what that could be?
Maybe another pandemic. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe. For fuck's sake.
Guess what? You like staying inside all the time? But I know, Jason, you kind of mentioned too that you had a story about UFOs in the desert. Is this a good time to cue into that?
I told this. Josh already heard the story. I will tell that story in just a second. I did find a story that's going to scare you, Shawn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Perfect.
It's not a paranormal story. Well, it is. It's a cryptid kind of story.
Oh.
It has to do with the ocean. So in 2003, you may have talked about it on the show at some point. You guys have been going for so long, and I haven't been able to listen to all the episodes. But in 2003, scientists tagged a 9-foot great white shark in Australia as part of a research study. However, upon checking the tracking device, something eyebrow-raising occurred. The device detected that suddenly the shark plummeted 1,900 feet in a matter of seconds, and its body temperature skyrocketed nearly 20 degrees. The only viable explanation, according to the researchers, some sort of massive sea creature must have swallowed it, dragged it deeper into the ocean, and turning it into a meal.
Yes, we've talked about, because Rich told me about the bloop after we brought that up.
Yes.
And it is the
Ocean.
Oh,
hang on. I gotta tell Josh about the bloop. So, in the North Atlantic, off of Alaska, I can't remember what research station has it, but they have a lot of deep sea buoys, and that just listen in on underwater life and stuff like that. And at one point during a recording, there was this bloop. It was just like a bloop,
Yeah.
And so they were able to measure the distance of it, of where this bloop, basically almost like an air bubble popping off. They said that considering the distance that it was coming from and the fact that this listening post would have picked it up, whatever made that air bubble would have to be massive, supremely massive.
It's fascinating to me, though, that shit like that actually exists, because it's not that hard to really believe, though, because we know more about outer space than we do our own oceans, which is fucked up. It is so fucked, to even think that that's a possibility. But yeah, God,
you think
that
about
was
it,
in 97.
97 is when that happened?
Yeah.
Oh, the bloop?
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, you think of it's very easy to believe that something is just laying on the bottom of the ocean because it's so massive and deep. Think about the rivers and the catfish that they find near bridges. They're like the size of Volkswagens just in a river. Could you imagine something with the carcasses that we know of in the ocean just falling down? It's just like, all right, bloop. It lets out a little fart, and that's what you hear.
And he's he could be so lazy because all the food just comes to him. You know what I mean? Just whatever. And he's just sitting there all fat and shit and just eating anything that comes at him. Fuck. It's crazy though.
Yeah. And then what happens is when that starts to go away, it's like, all right, great. Got to get up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you
well,
see
basically that's
move.
what they're saying that this listening post picked up. Christopher Fox from the NOAA stated that the audio of the bloop does resemble that of a living creature, but it would have to be far more powerful than the calls made by any animal on Earth.
Holy shit.
I mean, Richard talks about this a lot. When you're driving along and you see this big hill, or big, semi-mountain, what would you do if it just, moved and got up? It was just this giant creature.
Yes, I think about that weird shit all the time.
Right? Right?
All the time. I used to think about that when I was a kid.
Yeah, you're driving, you're sitting in the back of a car and you're going down the highway or whatever, and you just what if all of a sudden just this 400-foot tall thing just stands up out of the dirt? It was just sleeping and we just put cornfields on top of it.
Right. I'm like, what if that right there, what if that peak over there is just like an elbow? You know what I mean? And you see it
I'm
then
not
moving.
the apex predator anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if that happens, my other dreams are probably going to happen where I just become some kind of superhero and save the world.
There you go.
There's an eclipse, and that happens, and all of a sudden you can run through time, or you're invincible, or both.
Yeah, I'll just be like Drax and jump into the mouth and.
Be odd.
Die, apex predator!
Oh my god!
All right. Well, you wanted to hear about the desert. So lately, in the last 6 months, actually beginning of 2020, I've decided to go sit out in the middle of nowhere and watch the skies for UFOs. My very first paranormal experience in my life was when I was 7 and I saw a UFO. It was just a little light in the sky doing very weird things that I have no explanation for even to today. That was in Missouri, down by the Ozarks.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I've always been kind of in my research side, physically going places. I've always been more on the side of ghost hunting and that kind of thing, because you have a place to go to. Hot spots for UFOs are cool and all. A lot of them are a ways away, and who knows when you have to be there. It's a lot more work to do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I finally decided to start doing that. So me and some friends just started finding places on like a light pollution map that had low light pollution and drive out to them.
Yes.
And sit there throughout the night and see what we see. The first time we did that, we saw, a few satellites, which we could tell what those are. And there's apps that show most of the satellites in the sky, except for the secret ones, of course.
Naturally.
And
Black
You have to
Knight.
pay extra. You got to get the you can't get Skylight Light. You got to get Skylight Full.
You got to get the premium version of that shit.
So the first time I actually went with a couple other people. We saw a couple weird movements of a few satellite looking things, but nothing too crazy. But we had a good time doing it. And then the second time we went to southeastern Kansas and sat in the middle of a kind of a farm field road that nobody was coming down. And we were sitting in chairs watching the sky, and it was clear enough we could see the Milky Way. And we always kind of go when there's no moon in the sky so that we don't have that light pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of strange things happened on that one. We saw these formation sort of 5 different satellites. They weren't like a discernible formation, like they didn't make anything, but they were kind of moving in unison across the sky from the southeast to the northwest. And then a flash comes down from one of them. Like it flashed enough to light up the atmosphere around it and towards our direction, it seemed like
Like a beam down, or kind of like a flash in the sky, like you'd see.
It would be more like from our perspective, it would be a beam pointed towards us. That's what I would picture it as.
Fuck that.
Now, I haven't done enough research to see how reflective satellites are and what that might look like. Like they all look different, right? And they're all different sizes. And maybe it was just a weird reflection off the sun that happened to project right down towards us. I have no idea. But then some more stuff happened with that group. 3 of them stopped, and 2 of them just dead stopped, and 2 of them kept going. As far as I know, satellites don't just stop on a dime like that. They just look like stars then.
Yeah.
And they didn't, we focused on them for a little while. They never moved. We never saw them move away from that area. I did find out recently that satellites can curve a lot faster or turn a lot faster than I knew that they could, because I thought, they just sat in orbit, straight line all the time. It's not necessarily true. They curve around the sky all the time, but these just stopped. No explanation for it. So it's not anything super impressive. Like, it's not a saucer. It's not, it's just satellite looking things doing things that satellites aren't supposed to do. It's, I always make the joke, it's probably the Space Force, which is fine. I'm not necessarily thinking it's alien. It's just weird stuff that I don't have an explanation for.
They went into camouflage. They all of a sudden were like, quick, pretend to be stars.
Well, I know, like, you're talking about like satellites movement. Like, the only time I've ever seen this, we were outside and I saw what looked like a bright star, because it was a super clear night, moving across the sky fairly quickly. And I was just thinking, like, okay, maybe that's a plane, but it wasn't blinking. It was a solid light. So I'm like, all right. So I pulled out my Skylight app, and it was the International Space Station.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like what it does is it just keeps moving. It doesn't just stop, because I guess the Earth is what's making it move. I assume. I don't know for sure, but I would assume satellites would do something similar.
I'm not sure if the ISS has propulsion. I mean, it probably has things on it that have propulsion, but I don't know if they have it on. I don't know, like, which ones are moving and which ones are like the Earth is moving, so it looks like they're moving. There are ones that are geosynchronous where they stay over the same spot all the time, but those just look like a star to you because they shouldn't be moving in the sky.
Yeah.
But a couple other weird things happened right after that. So 90 seconds to 2 minutes after that, while we were watching the stars that were just sitting there, Larry was one of my buddies that was with me that looked up, and there was a shadow person standing directly next to him.
Oh.
And he freaked out and jumped up, and I was looking towards his car, and on the other side of the car, I saw what looked like a shadow move away from the car. So I don't know if it was all connected or if the things in the sky and the things on the ground were separate, but it all happened within a few minutes of each other.
Well, was it you, Jason, last year was talking about how there's theories that the ghost and like the things we think that are like spirits and stuff are actually aliens? Was it you that we talked to about that a little bit?
We may have. I mean, I think that there's a possibility that they're all connected. They all could be the same thing. Anything that's on the ground could be from the stars. I mean, who knows? It would be akin to their camouflage malfunctioning, and you see them for a glimpse or a shadow or whatever.
Yeah.
So then we kept going. So we went to another place up in Nebraska. We saw a few more weird lights in the sky. Nothing too crazy, but exciting to us because we can't capture any of this on camera really because I don't have the funds at the time to buy a camera that could pick up the stars. I might be able to figure it out with what I have, but I'm still working on that. But last month, I decided I wanted to really get out somewhere. I really wanted to get out where there was not supposed to be any zero light pollution, and it was going to be on a new moon, and also the moon was going to be on the other side of the planet. It was going to be out in the middle of nowhere. So I found some place that was 8 hours away in southeast Colorado in the middle of the desert. And on the light pollution map, there was nothing there. The closest town was like 10, 20, 30 miles away, and it was free camping. It was federal land, and nobody really knew about it. So I read some stuff about it. Couldn't find a whole lot of information on the place. I wasn't attracted to it necessarily because there's UFO reports there. It's actually the ancient Native American site. I just thought it would be a great place to go. And boy, we're going back in December. We had so much stuff happen. It was just me and another guy. We drive out on Friday and we get there. There's a car there, but nobody around. So I checked the sign-in book and there was a couple off hiking in the canyon and probably camping out there. So we set up camp. I put a light on my cot because we were going to hike up to the top of the canyon. Oh, this was also like a canyon land area. So we were going to hike up to the top of the canyon that kind of overlooked the camping area so we could see more of the sky. And I wanted to leave a light on in my tent. So in case somebody drove up, they'd think, oh, there's somebody in there and they won't mess with our stuff.
Smart.
So we sat up there for a few hours, but it was actually really smoky. Like all the smoke from California was coming through that area. So the sky wasn't any clearer than it was around outside of town here, which was fine. We were still, it was an amazing place. It was free camping. So we were just hanging out. We were having a few drinks. Then we hiked back down to the campsite because we figured, well, maybe it'll be clearer tomorrow. We could spend more time exploring the actual canyon because we got there like an hour before dark and we just wanted to get set up. So we saw some weird lights in the sky. We saw some movement on the ground and some weird lights on the ground. And that was before we hiked back down to the campsite. When we were sitting at the campsite, we were hanging out. We could still see most of the sky, even though we were down in the canyon. So we were just hanging out and we were listening to some podcasts on my Bluetooth speaker. And we started hearing voices come across the speaker. And I'd hit back and play it again. And then they weren't there. And we kept, we could hear voices out in the canyon as well. And at one point, we could hear screaming in the canyon.
Yeah, see, fuck that.
Yeah. Well, are you sure it wasn't the other campers? She was like, no, not there.
There's a possibility of that.
In my ear? Are you crazy? What?
There's a possibility of the campers for the screaming. Though it did, I mean, I haven't looked. I probably should look to see if somebody was murdered because it sounded like somebody was yelling help.
Oh, no.
Really loud.
If somebody was murdered?
And all I was doing is yelling, crazy things back to them because I didn't think it was them.
I'm a bear. I'm a bear.
But so yeah, we had the voices on the speaker, and actually several times it sounded like Larry's voice. So I'd stop and say, "What?" So I didn't say anything, and I play it back, and there wasn't anything there except for what was on the show. And we heard voices just like outside of where we could see around us as well, and there's a few other lights in the sky, and yeah, the screaming was crazy, and there was a few lights on the ground that we could see far away, but I don't think it was the campers. But what was really like, we didn't finish the night there. So 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, we were facing away from our tents the whole time, and we get up. Larry's going to go sleep in his car because he'd never slept in his tent before, and he didn't think it looked very comfortable, and he didn't actually bring anything to lay on.
Oh, rookie mistake.
But turn around towards the tent. So there was no sun, there was no moon out there. There's no electricity, so no light sources. Didn't have our flashlights on at that time when we stood up to turn around. There's a second light on inside my tent. Same shade, same brightness, same height, just like 4 feet away from the other one. And we're both standing there watching it.
Nope.
And then after 5 seconds, that one goes out.
Oh, I'm burning that tent.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, the other thing that Larry heard that I didn't hear because of my hearing problems was drums. Like he heard drumming, and he akin it to the Native American stuff out there. But I would have stayed. I wouldn't have been able to sleep in the tent that night. I would have probably sat up. I would have stayed, hung out, and slept during the day. But Larry wanted to go. So we packed up. And we went and got a hotel room for the night. And the next day we decided to go somewhere else, which ended up having its own crazy shit happen. But yeah, so we're actually going to go back out to the first place in December and hopefully have a bunch more stuff happen and start making a documentary about the place.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, I know like the drum beat thing you're talking about. Last week we talked about the Indian mounds in Illinois. There's some around our area in Quincy, and then there's some in Cahokia, Illinois, I believe. And it's the same thing. Like at night, they say you can kind of hear chants and stuff like that coming across the wind, which, I mean, like Rich says in that episode, it's like, oh, what should we do here? It's like, let's build a park.
There's these big giant mounds that we're pretty sure were Indian Americans. What should we do? Build a park in it. Let's just build a park, and then we'll just plow a road through it. And so everybody can just drive down this road. Did you ever see that movie Poltergeist? No. Why?
Actually, one of the neighborhoods in Kansas City has an Indian mound in it, and I actually found it last Saturday just driving around. Larry, we were checking out this. It's a really old neighborhood that we had no idea was there. We were looking for something else, and there's just happened to be an Indian mound in the middle of a park in this really nice old neighborhood. Jesus. And the neighborhood was called Indian Mound. And I tried to look up the history, and the only thing I could find is it said back in the 50s they blew up part of it.
Yeah, that's what we talked. It's like, who do you ask? It's like, who thought this was a good idea? Like, it's called Indian burial mounds.
The place, the park. I am not kidding you. The park is called Indian Mounds Park. There's a community pool there.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
So you go down the water slide, and then and then all of a sudden, hey, spirit of an ancient Native American warrior at the bottom of the pool or the bottom of the slide,
crying as you're eating.
And it's also right next to a big cemetery. So there's Indian mounds, and then there's the pool, and then you go down like about another block, maybe block and a half, and then you get a big cemetery.
Yeah, double whammy: cemetery, Indian mounds, dead drowned kid.
So yeah, my wife actually said that it was payback because my wife has at least a quarter, if not a little bit more, Native American blood, and just as an inside joke between us, I kind of tease her sometimes. Like if I see, like if I'm at a museum or something and I see like a little diagram or layout of a Native American scene, I'll send her a picture and say, hey, it's your people. So she said that was payback for that. The second night, we actually we discussed it in the morning. We decided, we scouted out that place. It was great. We want to go back with more stuff, but why don't we check out this other place I found that was an abandoned state park in northern Colorado. So we drove about 5 hours to get up there, and it was in a state park that closed in 2011, but it was still federal land, so you could camp there for free as well.
Wow.
And that's where they just take the bodies of Indians and then just like prop them up on sticks, and they're like, "Hey, come look!" And
looky here,
probably.
guys.
And then you're sending text to your wife, and you're like, "Look, I'm hanging out with the in-laws."
But yeah, so we drove around trying to within this, because there wasn't much of a description online. Just like, hey, they have campgrounds there, campsites. So we're the big campgrounds when it was open. Go find them. Basically, was all the instruction on the internet. So that's what we did, and we ended up finding the visitor center for the abandoned camp or the abandoned state park. And it was from 2010. So it wasn't, it's 10 years old and been abandoned for 9 years, but it looked like it was in pretty good condition. And on the backside, they had a big deck on the back. So we decided we're going to set up our tents underneath the deck and hang out on the deck, have some beers, and watch the sky for the night. So that's what we did. And we saw, we were closer to Denver International Airport, so we were seeing lots of planes. It was still really smoky, and we were hanging out, having a good time.
Messed up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So not a whole lot happened while we were watching the sky, but by the end of the night, we didn't make it through that night either, because we actually made it to bed, and it was really windy that entire weekend. So it sounded like there was movement around. I'm used to that. I'm a big outdoorsman. I love that. And I actually feel a little bit like a pansy because I didn't make it through 2 nights of camping. But there was about 30 minutes after we laid down, Larry slept in his car again because the second tent he brought wasn't actually a tent. He had never opened it. It was an awning for something and whatever. So he was asleep in his car, and I was laying down in my tent trying to go to sleep. And then it sounded like somebody was demolishing his awning. Like I didn't know what was going on. It didn't sound like the wind. And then I started hearing voices behind me, which would have been on the other side of the dock door of this abandoned building.
Oh, nope.
And I had walked around that building several times, and it was like boarded up tight, like screwed in boards. The glass was still on the other side of most of them. Nobody was getting in there because I tried. I wanted to go in there. So I started hearing that sound of the tent, and then I started hearing voices and banging what sounded like it was coming inside of it. So I got up. Oh, and I thought I heard a whisper saying, "It's them."
Richard.
But to me, it could have been the wind, but it was also very distinct. So I got up to see what was going on, and I could still hear the banging. And what are you laughing about?
He just goes, Richard.
Like, what do you want? You want me to hold you? What do you want to hear?
That's what I always sound like, because I'm like, no, Kupzyk.
It's better. So I get out of the tent, and Larry is sitting in his car. I could see him, but he has a blanket or something hung over his head. And I'm looking around. I could still hear the stuff inside, but I couldn't see anything. So I knocked on his car, and he didn't move. And I knocked again, and he didn't move. And I finally said his name, and he took the blanket off. And he said that he was awake. He was just too afraid to look when I was knocking.
Saying, nope, fuck
because, then the voices inside the thing stopped. But he got up, and he went into how he thought I had been walking around the car talking to my wife on the phone. He couldn't make out what the person was saying other than one thing. It's them.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
But then he fell asleep.
Richard.
Yeah. So, this isn't quite.
And there's 2 handprints, bigger, like 3 or 4 inches longer than ours, on the back of his car. We have photos of it. And his car, the back gate, it's an SUV. It's touchless. You just use a button to open and close it. So we hadn't touched it.
Man,
he said the car had been rocking too, and he thought it was the wind. So we packed up and left again.
Yeah, so it wasn't like anything supernatural, but Richard and I, when we went to New Jersey together for our last brocation, I drove the whole way from basically Illinois. So it was like a 18, 19 hour drive.
Jeez.
We get in, we do some stuff, like we basically crashed that night. And I wake up in the middle of the night thinking I'm here because we stayed at an Airbnb, but it was one of those where like we rented a room. So
it was a room in a house.
Yeah. And in the middle of the night, I swear I heard people walking around, and I swear I heard what sounded like a dead body, or a body fall and hit the ground and go. Arr. I get up, I tell Richard, I'm like, we got to go. And he's like, what? What's going on? He's like, don't suck my dick. Don't suck my dick.
That's exactly what I said.
I was this close
with
to getting
with
a
a bit
room.
less like, no, don't.
Suck my dick, please. No.
Yeah, I don't know what's creepier is hearing the stories, like being in those situations, or as I watch Josh as he kind of like takes his headphones every now and then, like look.
Yeah, like there's all sorts of weird shit going on here, and that's why I'm like, like the fuck is happening? Yeah,
like we don't like these guys. It's them. It's them we don't like.
This weird. I think it's just my eyes, like honestly, playing tricks on me. But it's like you're see. It almost looks like somebody's like peeking around the corner and then like quickly like going away. It's fucked up. It's really messing me up. But I don't know.
No, like wrap it up. We're ready to go to bed.
And we're going back, so it should have great stories coming up too.
That's ridiculous.
Fantastic.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'll be excited to hear about those. I think last year you were talking about your documentary. You guys were either starting to film it or about to get some work on it.
Dude, we're still working on it. I finally might have found the right place to bring Josh out to.
Like,
actually.
why don't I just like take off my pants and run backwards through a cornfield? How about that? Like, it'd be the exact same end result.
So,
Josh, are you more afraid or scared of like that, or like because I mean your Manor? I mean you're there by yourself, I assume.
Right? No, it's the idea. It's the idea of aliens that terrifies the shit out of me. Because I do not believe that they would be here like, spreading kindness and light and information and knowledge. I don't think
it's all to serve man. That's what it would be. The whole thing would be if you see an alien, that's instantly the first thing you think of is to serve man. You're like, you're not here to be nice. It's a cookbook. I know what's going on.
What was the dude that had to type with his hands?
hello.
Oh, Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody types with their hands.
No, like I know. Like, I knew what you meant,
I've
though.
been doing it wrong this whole time.
Son of a bitch.
But he was saying that if they showed up here, it'd be like we were the Native Americans and they're the Pilgrims. They're like, hey, this is ours now. We're like, all right.
Wear this blanket.
Stephen Hawking literally said, like, if the cosmic phone rings, don't pick it up.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, there's no way. And honestly, like, no. If they show up right now, let's think about it. Let's just think about 2020 in general, right? We can't handle a fucking pandemic. We lose our shit. We go buy up all the fucking Charmin. You know what I mean? We fucking lock ourselves up. We do all this shit and we freak the fuck out.
Yeah, it's War of the Worlds. It's War of the Worlds all over. That's exact.
What happens then? If intelligent alien life comes to planet Earth, everybody knows it. Everybody's privy to this information, right? Everybody knows what they're doing here and all this stuff. We are going to lose our shit to the point even organized religion crumbles. As we know it, there is no more religion whatsoever. Yep. We are going to tear ourselves apart. We cannot handle the truth. Fuck no, we can't.
Yeah, what is it? The Men in Black quote. It's a person is smart, people are dumb.
Fuck yes, they are. Yes,
yeah, but honestly,
absolutely.
It's going to take an alien actually coming down and showing itself because this year, the Pentagon has said
I know
that
what
the
they
videos out there are real, and nobody really seems to.
That's a good point. That was a very big misdirection. It's like, give them something. UFOs are real. Well, we knew that.
And then nobody. Oh, that was fucking just amazing to me. All of this information comes out, and everybody's like, Like, whatever.
It's so
fucking
weird.
What?
It's so crazy to me because in all reality, there has to be some kind of weird motivation behind it because they basically admit that there's things in the sky that they can't protect us from.
Yes.
That should scare the entire population.
Yes.
Even if it isn't alien, like if it's another country or something, like that's scarier too. I mean, like this whole space.
I think that just has to do with the whole like
Oh.
it breaks your brain to a point. Like it's like somebody says that to you, like you instantly kind of switch off a little because it's too massive a question. And so, like I said, like it kind of breaks your brain a little bit. And so then you're just like, okay, well, everything's fine right now. So,
well, yeah, I mean, like you go outside and you look up in the sky and you see all those stars and stuff. And like an asteroid could hit, our sun could go supernova, like millions of like different space things could happen and just like engulf us like we never existed. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like I think about that constantly. Like all of a sudden you just hear, you're like, oh, well, sun just blew up.
Fuck me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Had a good run.
I think about that stuff constantly too.
Yeah.
And I also do worry that if too many people are thinking about that, we may cause it to happen. Like it may be a make your own reality thing where if we tip the scales with too many people thinking about it, an asteroid's going to be pulled in.
here you go, Shawn. Consider this. Let's say hypothetically, all of a sudden the sun explodes. You're going to be able to watch it, and then you won't get the effect of it until like 7 minutes later. So you're going to see the sun explode, and then you've got 7 minutes to go, well, now that's it.
Yeah, it's kind of like if the sun like just turned off. Like it would be same thing. You have 7 minutes before like the Earth just went completely dark.
Yeah,
and then
Dude.
Freezes.
Yo, dude.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I've posed this question to Josh, and I've actually posed it to a lot of my friends and stuff that at times, if an asteroid was coming in, but you didn't know that it was coming in, let's say it hits the Earth, would you rather be directly underneath it? Let's say you guys both have kids, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't forgetting. But so Josh and I are on different sides of this. So would you rather be directly underneath it, not having known the fear of watching it hit the other side of the planet, but then the aftermath is going to come kill you? But you have time with your kids, but that you have to watch your kid be afraid because that's coming.
You have to watch your kid fucking potentially then die also afraid.
Right.
Yes.
Because we're talking about like a planet killer, like something that smacks the Earth and then it's over.
Would you rather have those few extra minutes, but you're terrified, or just have it in?
It depends on if you're talking like a situation where you're going to survive for a bit. If it's both, like if it's my whole family.
I mean, think about that. It could be a month.
Yeah, if you're saying my whole family is impacted, whatever my family was involved in, that's where I want to be. So if like it's just me, I'd want to survive so I could go to my family. But if you're saying, hey, it's going to kill your whole family in an instant, then that's what I'd want.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. I think it's just because that. I guess that has to deal with the station that I'm at. Now, let's say I'm worth, I don't know, let's say I'm Jeff Bezos. Or let's say I'm Jeff Bezos. Then even in that mindset, I would probably be like, no, I could probably handle that. Like,
yeah,
I've got cash.
I've got an asteroid bunker.
Yeah. Or I could, like talk people into building one. I'm Jeff fucking Bezos.
It could be built in a week. Like, let's be honest here.
So, I mean, if it was me as I am now, no, probably not. Now, if I was, like the heir to the Johnson & Johnson throne, like, yeah, I'd probably be like, no, I think I can weather it. I think I can handle it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, like Elon Musk would just hop on one of his rockets and take off to Mars.
Yeah,
well,
he'd get in his car and then be like,
he'd be the one peso billing that down here, or Paco billing it down. He'd have it wrangled, riding it down. Yee-hoo!
Here we go.
He's doing wheelies on it. He's doing donuts on it as it's cascading towards Earth.
Oh, he'd be high as fuck too. The guy would be baked out of his gourd. It'd be great.
He probably has like something to attract one in. He's probably the mad scientist guy that.
Or he just hits this time travel device and goes back to the future.
Yeah. Dude's crazy.
He's like, come on, Keanu.
Here we go. Yay.
Well, as we're wrapping up an amazing Brolloween, I guess, is there any kind of other last tidbits you guys want to throw out that you haven't talked about yet?
Or you could even tease your own stuff. That's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you got, Kupzyk? See, I'm working on a project right now. I've got a documentary that'll be coming out in I don't know, a couple months anyway. But yeah, but it's not really about like the spooky stuff, but it's about like the real world stuff that's spooky as shit. It's like real world stuff that is still paranormal, which is bizarre, but all of the stuff is like directly in front of our face. But basically,
title for it?
No, I don't. I don't even have a title for it. That's what's so fucked about it. Like I'm just working on the narrative and shooting it and all that stuff right now. But it's like
IRL spooky.
But it's really strange. It's all dealing with like the Fibonacci sequence of numbers, the golden ratio, and all of that. Yeah, and I'm really gonna head fuck some people, I think, with this.
Is that like the ley line kind of thing too?
This is basically like observing different things in nature that would then have the golden ratio.
The best example would be the best example shown would probably be like a seashell.
Exactly.
If you cut a seashell in half, and it's separated into chambers. If you ratio those chambers, it matches exactly the Fibonacci sequence of numbers.
Fucked up. And then, I mean, it goes even farther than that. I mean, how the wind blows is a Fibonacci sequence, also represents the golden ratio, all of this stuff. Like you cut down a tree and the spirals and the rings of the tree or whatever is another one. I mean, there's numerous. Even the way our bodies grow and develop, that's a Fibonacci sequence. It's really fucked. Like it is absolutely fucked. Even going just off planet then, for an example, you're looking into the galaxies and how they, the spirals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Even that represents the golden ratio. It's really fucked. But then I kind of go into some really weird shit, more philosophical in nature, right? Understanding and asking then the question, what does this do about not necessarily God, but a creator of some sort, some kind of intelligent design? How about that?
Yeah.
So does that kind of leads me to like the other thing I freak out sometimes about is being either in like an alien ant farm or a simulation.
Same as me, man. Same as me. Like I watched that movie, The Fourth Kind, and it freaked me out. Like they were doing that hypno regression therapy with one dude, and this like alien voice took over.
Oh, yeah.
And she was talking like, well, what about God? And he said, I am God. That fucking freaked me out more than anything. I'm like, yep, okay. What if we are just a science experiment in an 8th grade classroom in some fucked up galaxy that we don't even know about? It's like, what is going on?
Yeah. Right now, we're like the kid handed it off to one of their friends. Like, hey, I got to go away for a year. Can you watch my science experiment?
Well, because
Toilet or something.
Josh is sitting here talking about the golden ratio Fibonacci sequence. Like that whole sequence of numbers was figured out, 400 or 500 years ago. So it begs the question: how did they know that? How did they figure that out 500 years ago?
I'll do even one better, man. Like they are now looking at different things in math and different like cave paintings and all this bullshit. They think that they even had this figured out 500 to 600 BC.
Oh. We've talked about that before. We always talk about like caveman, like way back in the past, being like, oh, they were stupid. They fought with sticks. It's like, how do you know there weren't these like ridiculous civilizations that just collapsed and fell? Hundreds of thousands.
I told you about
ago.
I told Shawn about it was in South America that they have structures in South America where the blocks are perfectly structured. That even after 10,000, 15,000 years, that you can't take a piece of paper and slip it in between these rocks because they've been so perfectly masoned.
Yeah. It's like it's just amazing to me how that happens. It's no, I watched that weird guy with the crazy hair. What's his name? Giorgio something.
Oh yeah.
Aliens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy.
that
Yeah,
guy.
He was doing that though, but he was. That's true. You can buy the Ectos. Yeah, but like he, I saw him doing that or attempting to do that, and yeah, he's like, no, you can't do it. I'm like, this is fucking crazy.
Oh God, where is it? Central America. In Central America, there's a collection of perfect spears made out of rock that are just scattered about.
And how does that
Yeah,
happen?
that we don't have like technology to do that today. Like we have nothing that could cut like that.
Exactly. And nowhere in nature does an actual perfect circle exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. You think about places like Atlantis and the ideas behind that. You just wonder like how much of those things were out there. Because I mean, you think about like right now, all of our stuff's on computers that after so many years would just completely disappear if it wasn't done anything with. So some earth-shattering event, all of our stuff disappears. It degrades after, 10,000 years. And now the next civilization rises. They're like, look at these dumb people. They had these things on sticks that look like penises. Like, no, those were microphones. We were podcasters.
Oh, I love it though. It's like all of these people had something to compensate for. Like all this weird shit. Oh my God.
And that's when the aliens came.
And that's when they came. That's right.
Well, gents, if you guys want to plug your show or plug anything else.
Yeah, I have a new project that I'm working on too. One is the documentary I already talked about that I'm hoping to get Josh in on so we can finally work on that, get Josh Hurd abducted, which we won't title it that anymore.
Yeah,
that's what it was going to be.
It's the working title.
I even made a GoFundMe once that some people donated to, but Josh would not go out in the desert and wrap himself in tinfoil.
For fuck's sake.
But anyway, so in 2021, we're finally going to make that happen as well as some other stuff. I did just start a new project called Strange Paranormal. I was so surprised that domain was available that I bought it, and all the social media account domains were available too. Like Strange Paranormal is all mine now.
That's really fucked
like
up.
on the nose too. Like you think that'd be picked up.
Yeah. Like right out of the gate.
I'm doing a bunch of stuff under that name.
Wow.
Including the first thing that I'm doing. The real launch of that's going to be in 2021. But the first thing that I'm doing is with Larry. Him and I are about to put out a coffee table book of cemeteries. And that'll be on strangeparanormal.com as well as there's going to be YouTube videos. And my recent investigation stuff has really reinvigorated me to get back into the field of investigating. So that's kind of what's going to be on Strange Paranormal. With Ectoplasm Show, which is all going to be tied together, of course, but Ectoplasm Show, we just hit 6 years. We didn't even celebrate our 6-year anniversary and 350 episodes.
Love you.
I understand. Somebody always forgets our anniversary too. Not naming names, but Richard.
It's me. I'll name it. It's me. I'm fine with it. I don't
He's
care.
like, you're lucky I'm just still doing this.
That's right. You bastard.
Yeah, go to ectoplasmshow.com if you like Josh and I and you want to listen to our show.
It's a lot of dick and fart jokes. I mean, let's be real.
It is a conversation podcast where we just bullshit about paranormal. So
dick and fart jokes.
Josh
column B
has been trying to get the L word out of me for 5 years now.
Because I tell you I love you like all the time. And
I told you exactly what it's going to take to do that.
Yeah, run backwards
to get
through
that,
a cornfield.
And you haven't fulfilled your end of the bargain.
Well, I'll just let you guys know.
Ask me who says it. Ask me who says it first whenever we're on the phone.
And ask who also says it.
I mean, after I always say it second.
I love you.
I'm pretty sure he started it.
That's the way it goes.
All right. Well, I thank you, Joe. Yeah, definitely go out and check out the Ectoplasm Show. It's a great show. I listen to it quite a bit. But Richard, as we're tidying up Brolloween 2020, what do you have for some Richard's closing thoughts?
You people have things to look up. Everybody has things they need to go look up. You need to go look up the bloop. You need to go look up We didn't even get any stories about creepy dolls. I had those in there. You need to go look up a Dybbuk box. Yeah, you've got your work cut out for you. So I'm gonna keep it short. I'm gonna keep it sweet, so that way everybody can go and melt Wikipedia.
I was gonna ask you about your doll story, but Josh has been looking all over the place all night.
I have one more closing thought as Josh walks away. Go vote for Josh for county supervisor if you live in the county that he lives in, because he's running for office. And in 19 days, if he probably will lose in a landslide, but in 19 days, Josh is running for office.
Where did that doll come from?
This doll is actually my good buddy Johnny Hauser from the Villisca Axe Murder House. So this is his doll. So her name is Patty. We just call her Patty Hauser. But she is like, Johnny's trying this really weird experiment where he wants to see if he can create a haunted object. So Patty here spent, I think, a year at the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas, a year inside Villisca, and now she's spending a year here at Malvern Manor. She's beat to shit. She looks like hell, and she's kind of a little hooker. I mean, but like, people have now, like, you know, like Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters. Like, this is going to look really bad, guys. I have to undress.
He says as he undresses.
I have to undress the doll because our pal Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters signed her ass cheek right up here. It's kind of hilarious. But my God, man, like, Patty Hauser is just crazy, though. So yeah, she's super creepy.
Yeah, that's stuff I don't mess with. Like Ouija boards, kind of like, I feel like that's the borderline Ouija board kind of scenario.
And I have plenty of those here too. You know,
I'm not a fan. Not into it.
We got to get you guys up here, like, no matter what. We have to get you guys over here.
Oh, definitely.
For sure. Like, just spend a night or a weekend or whatever. We can all just, like, fucking record shit and just hang out and have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we should attempt that for Brolloween 2021.
Let's fucking do that.
If you want, I've got books. I've got I've got a copy of the Lesser Key of Solomon. We could just go and summon up some demons.
Fucking A. Good for business. It's good for business. It'll be fine.
I will have a hotel. I will have a hotel room
what
somewhere
could
else.
go wrong?
All right, let me do a little bit of housekeeping.
This is where the narrator jumps in and says, but something did go wrong.
Visit our website, we're languagebros.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languagebro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. You can join our Patreon account like Wendy and Aaron.
Hey, we like you guys. And we hope you don't get, accosted by demons or ghosts of Native Americans or aliens or God knows what else, giant sea monsters.
Yeah. Asteroids, exploding suns.
Yeah. We hope you're just fine.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks again, guys, for jumping on. I love having you guys on. And yeah, I think 2021, we need to pencil that in. I will make my hotel reservation, and then I'll just kind of stand outside and wave.
Dude, we have a working restroom here. We have a shower here. We have a full kitchen.
Oh, there's a shower. He's sold. He takes 3 showers a day.
Yeah, I shower a bunch. I'm not going to shower there.
I am the same as you. I take showers all the time. And I have showered here. It is totally
I've
cool.
seen him do 4 in one day.
Yep.
I shower a lot.
I do the same thing, man. I got to do it. I feel grungy.
Cleanliness is next to godliness,
Amen.
Richard.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it.
All right. Well, that's all the bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
Oh, I'm John. Or Jason.
Ah, you fucker. I'm Josh. That's great.
And remember, don't be a why.
Be a why not.
Why not?
And don't summon any demons.
Yeah.
Unintentionally.
Do you have a lot of salt in that shower and like holy water?
No.
You will if he shows up.